Hello, this is Kent again, and we're starting chapter 19 of being a citizen of heaven. I have found many times that people tend to hear what they want to hear, and they will ignore what they want to ignore. And it's not just adults, it's children also. Will say, well, I never heard you say that, or something of that nature. And many times people read into things that just are not there, that they think you're saying something that you're not saying. What I am trying to do with these videos is to show uh, what effect the world has on our view of being a citizen of heaven. I hope that it would give you pause to think things through. That's the purpose of it. I know some things I may sound silly or ridiculous to you, and I have no problem with that. But I hope that you can pause and think it through and look things up yourself and see if there may be a glimmer of truth in some of it that may help you grow and mature in Christ. The citizen of heaven is living in a secular world that hates the thought of God and anything that looks religious. They still have their gods, they just place them under different categories and call their gods by different names. Right now, one of the biggies is global warming or climate change. They can sort of change the name of it, their gods, as it benefits them. I have noticed. And this God is trying to force people into sacrificing some of the things that they find very valuable and are very useful to them. But it's all done because they believe the world is going to be destroyed if they don't bow down to the God of climate change and global warming. But let us read, and I hope no Christian would bow down to this God. But let us read Colossians 1:15 through 17. He says, He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of creation. For by him all things were created, both in heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And so Christ is going to keep everything held together. Uh, what the Lord has planned, and if we try to fight that, you might as well try holding the tide back. It's not going to happen. But until that point happens, we can have full security and comfort knowing that Christ is holding this together and he has a purpose for holding it together. And we shouldn't be caught up in the fear mongering that comes down the pike by people who are concerned about the world being destroyed. It just isn't going to happen. Uh, how often have people's lives been uh, turned upside down by worshiping animals? If you can only save the whale or the snail darter, the world will be saved. How many people watch celebrities incessantly believing if they could only be like them, their lives would be right. We call these things sometimes the cult of personality. Uh, Caesarea, the city of Caesarea, was built to worship Augustus Caesar. There was an actual temple there uh, that people would go in to worship him. And so we see this going on in a regular basis. But let's look at Deuteronomy 4. Deuteronomy 4:15 through 19. So watch yourselves carefully, since you did not see any form on the day the Lord spoke to you at Horeb from the midst of the fire, so that you do not act corruptly, and make a graven image for yourselves in the form of any figure and likeness of male or female, the likeness of any animal that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the sky, the likeness of any that creeps on the ground, and the likeness of any fish that is in the water below the earth. And so what we see here is, even back then, they were being warned not to get caught up in sacrificing to false gods that could be in the image of a man or in the image of an animal. And that's what we see going on right now with so many of these different activities. They're actually worshiping animals and men, or mankind. How many people believe that if they sacrifice their child to the god of abortion, life will get better? I cannot tell you how many times, and I know you too, have listened to people say that it just wasn't time for them to have a child, so they aborted the child, or they didn't have the money. That's telling you that they think life is going to get better if they sacrifice that child to the god of abortion, and that makes abortion a god. Let us look at Leviticus 18:21. Neither shall you give any of your offspring to offer them to Molech, nor shall you profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Now, there is question as if Molech was the actual act of sacrificing the child, or it was the god. Either one, the child is killed. They would beat these drums loudly at these activities, because when they'd lay the child on the arms of Molech, reaching out, it would be red hot, and then the child would be burned and scream, and the drums would, they would be using the drums to try to drown out some of the screaming that was going on at the time. And so we see that abortion is basically just sacrificing your child to Molech. Look at chapter 20 in Leviticus, verses 2 through 5. He says, "You shall also say to the sons of Israel, any man from the sons of Israel or from the alien sojourning in Israel who gives any of his offspring to Molech shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones. I will also set my face against that man and will cut him off from among the people, because he has given some of his offspring to Molech, so as to defile my sanctuary and to profane my holy name. If the people of the land, however, should ever disregard that man when he gives any of his offspring to Moloch, so as not to put him to death, then I myself will set my face against that man and against his family, and I will cut off from among their people both him and all those who play the harlot after him, by playing the harlot after Molech." And so we see how intensely God disagrees with abortion. He loathes it. And we need to understand that it is murder. It is not something that is just an activity that people do. It is a religious service where they are sacrificing their child to that God. And it's very important for us to understand that. All of these forms of worship can be found in the old world, just under different names. And we can go through and find so many of these things, but let's look just at gambling. Fortune comes from the worship of the Roman god. Fortune, it came from a Greek god, and the Romans started worshiping it. And we get things as the, what do you call it? The wheel of fortune. blind faith, lady luck, things of that nature. Those terms come from that. And what they did there, they did their gambling in those services. So every time you buy a, what do they call them, a lottery ticket, you are bowing down to the god of fortune, blind fate, chance. You're taking a chance. Every time you go into a casino, you're bowing down to the god of fortune. The difficulty that we run into with this is the fact there is no place for chance with God. God is in control. And when you go and start doing these activities, you're taking God out of your life and saying you're going to prefer chance than God's will in your life. And that's why it's so important not to participate in gambling, because you're bowing down to the god of fortune. There was an example, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but there's a lady and she's standing with a rudder behind her hand on the rudder, and she's blindfolded, and they call that blind fate. And it's just living by chance, and we don't want to be involved in those activities. Another one is, and I hope I pronounce this right, but is Jin Well. It was a Egyptian god that was a goose, and their ceremony, they'd have a goose come down a big tunnel, and it would swim out into the pond, and everybody would cheer and think it was great because this goose uh, uh, flew through the universe and laid an egg, and that's how we all came about. The egg split open, and these people believed that. And there's many things that we believe today are the same principle. Some abstract idea that really is meaningless, has no proof, but yet the majority of society decides they're going to bow a knee to it, and they do. And I hope we, as citizens of heaven, would identify those things and not bow a knee to that either. Individual gods and geographical gods are many times easier to keep at a safe distance. Individual gods are where they're worshiping, someone is worshiping, say, an entertainer, and you can see the silliness of that. And then there's, pardon me, then there is geographical, where you could run into where people go to Sedona to be part of the vortex, and you don't have to go there. The most difficult ones are cultural gods, and they're the hardest to keep them from influencing you because you are reared with them. You are brought up with them all around you, being told all the time that it is right and that's the way it has to be. And the citizen of heaven has to be very careful about that. The three biggest ones in the Western world right now would be democracy, free enterprise capitalism, liberties, free speech. Free speech seems to be a real big one right now. These are the backbone of Western culture. Uh, they've been evangelized all around the world. How often is it important for some new country or whatever to get democracy in it? And they need to have free speech. If you don't have free speech, then everything's horrible. Uh, it's interesting that these things come about. The citizen of heaven clings to the fact that when that God does not need man's okay to stay on his throne. There's no voting for God to be on the throne. The citizen of heaven realizes that when all the money's gone, true wealth is found in our relationship with God. And the citizen of heaven seeks out liberty and freedom of knowing Christ. This is the mindset that the citizen of heaven must have to serve anywhere and everywhere. You cannot be tied in to a certain system or earthly mindset if you want to be used as fully as possible by God. Uh, Matthew 12:36. Matthew 12:36 through 37. But I tell you that every careless word that people speak, they shall give an account for in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, or by your words you will be condemned. Does that sound like free speech, that you can just say whatever you want? No, not at all. You're going to answer for the words that come out of your mouth. And if I scream out to the world that you should have free speech, then I am lying to them, because there's no such thing. They are going to answer for the words that they say, and I need to share that. I can't get caught up in the worshiping of the God of liberties and free speech when I know personally from reading my Bible that people are going to answer for these things. There is no get out of jail free card. Everyone will answer for not only their actions but for their words. And we can't get caught up in lying to people saying there's free speech when there is not. We need to clarify that. Matthew 27:15. There are several of these verses, but I'm using Matthew 27:15 to get across a concept here. 27:15. It is a series of what happened to Christ before he was crucified. And it's important for us to see that. And I have the verses here. Mark, Luke, John, we're doing Matthew 27, but these go along with the same events. Starting in verse 15, he says, "Now, at the feast of the governor was accustomed to release for the people any one prisoner whom they wanted. At that time they were holding a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when the people gathered together, Pilate said to them, 'Whom do you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?' For he knew that because of envy they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent him a message saying, 'Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for last night I suffered greatly in a dream because of him.' But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to put Jesus to death." Pardon me. But the governor said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ?" They all said, "Crucify him." And he said, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they kept shouting all the more, saying, "Crucify him." Now, did Pilate put it to a vote? Yes, he did. That's very basic democracy. And so a person could literally say that democracy is what put Christ on the cross. They voted between two individuals. Now, am I saying that democracy is evil and bad? Not at all. It is just another system that we live under at this time. The problem is I hear some Christian leaders saying it is God's chosen way for man to run things. Not at all. He is just using it right now. God is just using democracy in our society and system and in the West to run things. It wasn't that long ago, good gracious, it wasn't that long ago that the monarchy was God's chosen way to running things, and everybody accepted that. When America went down the Republic road, there were kings in all these other countries at the time, and it started something new. And so now we have been raised in this thinking that that's what's right and the only way, when in reality there's been many others, and we can't get caught up and go around telling everyone you have to have a democracy for it to be done right. No, God will use what God wants to use to achieve His will. And if it's democracy right now, it's democracy. If it's a dictator, it will be a dictator. God is using different people throughout the world under different political systems to achieve His will, and we need to find a peace with that. Our people, as citizens of heaven, must be ready to work under any system man, of man, only looking in those systems for God's glory and our lost brothers and sisters in Christ. I cannot care what the political system is. I must always be a faithful follower of Christ, willing to work in any system that comes my way. Now, again, you understand, I would hope, why I said at the beginning, I want people to not read into something that's not there. I'm not asking you to go out and march against democracy, free speech, whatever the case is. What I'm saying is there is a system out there, and we're going to work in that system. But don't get caught up that it is the only way God works. He works in a multitude of systems and a multitude of ways. Let us appreciate it, let us identify it, and let's be willing to work with wherever God has placed us. There will be no notes on this chapter 19 because I wanted to go through this one with the verses because it was quite a unique topic. But anyway, you all have a lovely day, and we'll talk later.